Welcome back to a best of 3 series of top level StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a Protoss versus Zerg between two channel favorites. But first off, in the top right hand corner of ley lines, playing with the blue Protoss probes, we have none other than MaxPax. And his opponent down in the bottom left with the red Zerg drones, he goes by the name of Reynor. This is a big match. I'm actually very excited for this one. So this was played a couple of days ago during the Masters Coliseum. And MaxPax, of course, in phenomenal shape right now. We know that Reynor is always good, but we also know that he was struggling a little bit at home Story Cup. He's been, well, not entirely sure what to do because obviously the StarCraft 2 2024 season has wrapped up. We don't really have a pro season announced yet for the upcoming year, and all in all, it's a little bit confusing. I know he's been playing a lot of League of Legends, for example, but then again, he is Reynor, and sometimes, honestly, you get better. This sounds really weird, but sometimes you can get better by playing the game less. I've experienced this quite a bit myself. There is like a base skill level that you need in mechanics in particular. But once you learn how to queen inject and you learn how to macro, right? It's not one of those things you really forget. So for somebody like Reynor, it can be extremely beneficial to put in a lot of work for some time, then take a bit of a break and then come back and maybe have like a fresh line of thought. We've seen the same thing as well, for example, with Elaser recently, who decided to play a lot of Stormgate and then come back to StarCraft 2, and suddenly all of his builds are reinventing themselves. And some of them are better than others, but it is fun to, yeah, get a fresh look on things, and I think it's really impressive. With somebody like Reynor, honestly, like, he's played so much this year. Obviously, he went over to Korea, and he tried to compete over there. He put in an awful lot of time, and, well, sometimes you end up not having the tournament results you're hoping for, and you decide to take a bit of a break. And I have seen players come back out of that stronger than before. Now, I don't think MaxPax has ever taken a break, ever since installing this game. Jokes aside, MaxPax plays in literally everything. Like, any online tournament with more than like $50 on the line, assuming it's not during his, like, I guess, like, I don't know, sleep time or whatever, he's pretty much always signing up for every single cup around the clock. So, MaxPax, he's always grinding. He's extremely good because of it. Macro-wise, I don't think you can really find a better Protoss player. MaxPax really is sharp. So far, he's been able to delay his opponent's start base here for a little bit. There's a Stargate inside of the main base here too. Nothing out of the ordinary. That is one of the things that I guess you can criticize MaxPax for. He is very predictable, although he's been working on that quite a bit. I have seen him... I think we gotta move a little bit, but anyways. We have seen him, mix it up a bit with some Twilight Council play, and he does small mix-ups. So even if we're gonna see him doing a Stargate opener with Oracles a couple of times in this series, he will always make small adjustments. So this time around, for example, it's a Stalker, after that Adept. We can always, though, see double Adept as well, triple Adept. Like, there's these little shakeups that do, make the response from the Zerg a little bit different as well. So there's small plays like that MaxPax does like to adjust from game to game. But broadly speaking, he's extremely predictable because he does that thing that, well, for example, Reynor likes to do too, and that is play normal StarCraft 2, but do it better than anybody else. So let's see. 4-minute or so Evolution Chamber, probably for +1 melee. We don't have a Roach Warren yet, we don't have a Bailing Nest yet either, although one of those two will be coming up before too long. I was thinking about sniping the one Cocoon over here. Instead, he's going to settle for the Spore Crawler. Keep in mind, of course, that these days it's a little bit... Oh, quick clicking. It's a little bit trickier to actually deal damage to the drones with the Oracle. The Queens are a little bit more expensive, but the Spore Crawler deals significantly more damage, so Protoss players are a little bit more cautious when it comes to flying into somebody's base. Because if you don't pay attention to your Oracle, you will just end up losing it. But then again, since the Queens are more expensive and Zerg is forced to make a bunch of these drones and morph them into Spores, you indirectly end up dealing a bit of damage just for going Oracles. So yeah, it's not as common anymore to see like 10 workers going down in the early game, but then at the same time, I guess by default, you've already done like 3 to 4 workers worth of damage just for playing Stargate compared to the previous patch. Anyways, it is a +1 melee. Lair coming up right now on the back of this, and we will be seeing Blink together with +1 as soon as he gets up to the resource count, which is right now. Alrighty. First big move across the map. Zerglings are gonna try and chase this. More or less a skill check, but this little Ling run by over here on the other side of the map is lovely. And this is the type of stuff that can really put the wins in Reynor's favor. Ultimately, the oracles come back home, but that's 6 probes going down. And whilst this is happening, we have 9 drones as well on the production tab. That is a lovely little play right there for Reynor. Reynor really, like when he first came up as a really good player, so this must have been when he was like 15 years old or something along those lines. He was extremely good at mid-game Zergling run-bys. It's something that all the Zerg players are good at these days, because he's sort of the one that really put that on the map. Everybody copied it. But you can still see that from time to time, where he just shows up with a random group of Zerglings. He read the build from the Protoss player perfectly. He knew that those Adepts and Oracles were going across the map, and right when Protoss found himself on the other side of the map and he was dancing here with the Queens, that's when the Lings ran in, and 6 probes, 7 probes right now in total is actually a really good start. Infestation Pit, nice and early as well. +1 melee is done, +2 melee, immediately on the back of this. Zergling shenanigans with the same group of Zerglings is going to continue with an Overlord drop. So I guess we're moving on over in that direction. Blink is coming up though. There's a lot more Stalkers than just these 4. It's likely though that those Stalkers are gonna go across the map too, although yep, MaxPax this time around is prepared for it, predicting that this was indeed gonna be a play. That does mean though that the aggression on the other side of the map is not gonna be quite as impressive. Good Stasis Ward trigger. Not as many Zerglings available, and these do have +1. Gonna have to try and protect these units, but you can tell here that +1 melee may not have been entirely expected yet. Zerglings attack very quickly, and every single one of those attacks now deals +1 more damage. It's very noticeable, especially against these, well, relatively beefy targets, right? But then units that attack relatively slowly. So Stalkers there, yeah, they have quite a bit of DPS. But they do a lot of overkilling damage on Zerglings in particular. So nice moves right here for Reynor. Certainly grabbing control of this game. Lurker Den coming up. In the meantime, on the other side of the map, MaxPax is tacking up towards a robotics bay. So he's thinking about either Colossus. Well, really only Colossus. Technically, Disruptors are an option, but you don't really go Disruptors against Zerg in general. You did in previous patch. You definitely don't anymore in this patch, now that Roaches and Ravagers don't get one-shot anymore. Hive just about to finish up. Lurker Den about halfway done. +1 missile begins here as well, as the second evolution chamber is done. No carapace upgrades though for Reynor, so he is going full damage. And there's still like a scary time here, where Zerg will not have their Hive Tech upgrades really kick in, right? So we have the Lurker Den mostly done here, but you need upgrades for those units to really be effective. And it's the same for Adrenal Glands. It's the same for any of those other upgrades. Reynor will have a good army in about a minute or two from now. But at this point, he's relatively vulnerable. MaxPax, though, not entirely confident that all of this is going to go well. The Queens do walk into a stasis ward. Looks like all of the stasis traps at this point have been set off. Mostly just trying to keep this all pinned back. And there's the Ovi drop, actually, finally coming into play. I was keeping an eye out on the minimap, but of course, Reynor moves it as soon as I am looking somewhere else. To be fair, he was waiting for MaxPax to be looking somewhere else as well. Yeah, and it doesn't usually happen that Zerg is dealing more economical damage than Protoss in this matchup. This has now reduced MaxPax down, though, to 69 probes, which I think is pretty nice. And he does have a 4th base done as well. Definitely looking for those gases here before too long. There's the extended thermal lens coming up. Bit of a supply block. Uncharacteristic mistake right here for MaxPax. When you're behind, this is not the type of mistake you're really allowed to make, though. One of the Colossi, oh my god, what? Alright. Well, when you start making moves like that against one of the world's greatest players, Reynor is going to be able to run away with the victory. It's a lot of Zerglings, man. He's trying to get a wraparound on the Stalkers to then allow those Lurkers to deal their damage if the Stalkers can't retreat. Yeah, this is going from bad to worse right now here for Max. Brilliant plays from Reynor. It all started with that first little Ling run by. Now, there is quite a bit of damage being done on the other side of the map. A couple of Zealots being very annoying. It's actually more than a couple. About 6 or 7 of them. In the meantime, though, it looks like the 4th base of Protoss is in a world of trouble. MaxPax realizes that there's just no stopping Reynor. Sure, you may kill some economy on the other side of the map, but that is not enough to push back the Zerg. Next up, we find ourselves on King's Cove. Hope you got yourself a drink. I'm all out of coffee, but I've got a big bottle of water, because this map tends to be a relatively slow one. We have seen Zergs get quite a bit of damage done when this map was first reintroduced by going for like lurker drops on the right side of the map, and then also for lurker drops right over here at the bottom, and they kind of like try to sail in. But as long as Protoss is on top of all of that shenanigans and they don't get overwhelmed with like a Nidus network or anything along those lines, usually games on this map, they tend to go the distance. So let's see. I don't know about this one, but I think MaxPax probably will find most success in the late game. I think playing the late game is where you want to be right now as Protoss. It's actually interesting though. I've seen a lot of Protoss players do well in the late game, but then we've also had players like, for example, Skillis. Skillis has been playing some very good StarCraft and hyper aggressively in the mid game in particular. I kind of feel like that's almost unexplored territory. Where, yeah, Zergs are very strong in the mid game in general. A little bit weaker later on. They need more of that economical advantage to really get that to work, but I have been impressed by the variety of playstyles we've seen lately. MaxPax, though, just sort of fell apart in the previous game, right? So I feel like that is one of MaxPax's weaknesses. When MaxPax plays really cleanly, and he, like, knows all of the steps that he needs to take inside of the game, right? So, like, the game starts off with the Oracle harassment, he deals a little bit of damage, then he deals a bit more damage later on. It's all great. But if one of those things, if one of the 69 steps in his master plan goes wrong, suddenly the whole game tends to fall apart. And I think that's something MaxPax is likely going to try and work on over the next year. Just being able to recover from a game that isn't going perfectly according to plan is something that really needs to be done. Because against the highest level players, you're not going to be able to play a perfect game. Somebody like Reynor, like his entire style is to be disruptive, right? That's what he likes to do. Maybe not as crazy as, like, for example, a Dark, or maybe not as crazy as, for example, Rogue. MaxPax is very specialized, I think, in playing against that very textbook approach from, for example, a Serral or, for example, a Lambo. But as soon as the game goes a little wild, a little wacky, and something doesn't go entirely 100% according to plan, usually that's where he seems a bit weaker. Then again, though, we don't know much about MaxPax, but according to his Wikipedia, he's like 19 years old, so it's not like he's at his peak yet, you know? Like, I'm old at this point. Ugh. I can barely hold a mouse. My knees sometimes hurts after, you know, waking up. I'm like, why does my knee hurt? I haven't done anything. Anyways, at the ripe age of 32, I won't be getting much better at StarCraft, but there's a good chance that MaxPax will still be able to get significantly better. Especially because over the last couple of years, I would actually say that at a high level, like, he is already considered to be one of the top tier players. But if we compare where he used to be a year ago, compared to, like, for example, where Serral was a year ago, or, for example, where Reynor was a year ago, I think it's MaxPax and Clem that have improved the most across the board. Obviously, Clem up to an entirely different standard. But what I'm trying to say is, I'm expecting MaxPax to get better over the course of the next couple years. Robotics facility finishing up right now. ZERGLING is running around the map trying to see if there's any shenanigans, any proxy gateways, or anything along those lines. Charge coming up this time around is the very first upgrade, so this is the deviation this time. This all looks identical, right? If you're Reynor here, most of this looks broadly the same as the previous game. And considering this is a big macro map, it's actually kind of funky to now follow this up with Charge. In the meantime, we have a Spire building here as well for Reynor. So Reynor does not want to play the long game. He's good at late game, but he is not really feeling it. Mutas are literally hit or miss. It's one of those things that can work very well, but you need a fourth base. In order to run this properly at this timing, you kind of need the gases at the fourth base. He's not taking those yet because it would spoil the surprise. Charge slots, though, can be extremely useful. Oh, great scout. Lovely scout right there by Reynor. Sees this army coming in, and he starts up a bunch of roaches. He was trying to save up gas. Instead now goes for 10 roaches because he's going to need it. I think we'll see a Muta transition if he manages to, well, deal with all of this aggression. This is an Archon Zealot all-in. This is a lovely attack if you're a Diamond League Protoss player because this doesn't need micro. You just attack move, man. You have to choose the right moment to attack move. You can do, I guess, a Guardian Shield and maybe like a, I don't know, like a couple Force Fields or something. But the bulk of your damage is going to come from those Archons and Zealots, and those you just attack move. Killing this base is good. I don't know if it's good enough if you lose the Archons, but I think you can keep those alive. Ooh, Queen's hunting down the prison. Run, run, run. Or fly. You fool. All right, in the meantime, we did have a bit of damage done on the other side of the map too. But, yeah, decently successful attack right there from the Protoss. Pretty much the best you can hope for. It did effectively delay the Muta transition, so that's also something to consider. It means that any sort of defense here should be a bit easier. MaxPax does have one shield battery set up, but nothing in the natural, nothing in the main base. Sonic Storm on the back it is. I'm gonna need those Archons again, and this is an eye for an eye. Yeah, a fourth base for a fourth base, although this one only just now began. I'm a little afraid for those Mutalisks. He does have little clumps of Protoss all around the map, so there's a chance that the Mutas accidentally fly over it, and I think they will. This is important for MaxPax though, because if you're suddenly caught off guard, look at Reynor, he's like, you didn't see anything, don't worry about it. If you're suddenly caught off guard against Mutas, they will just kill your entire mineral line and then some. Now at least there's a couple Stalkers waiting. He doesn't yet have Blink because he went for charge first. This is painful. A significant supply advantage right now for Reynor. And the problem here for Max is not only is he under pressure, he's gonna have a super hard time. No cancel. He's gonna have an extremely hard time getting that fourth base up and running. In the meantime, the defense at home right here for Reynor is excellent. One Queen goes down, but that is well worth it. Some Storms here to keep the Protoss player happy for now, but look, on King's Cove, you have the main base, you have the natural, and then in that same plane, right, you have the third. But then in order to take a fourth base, you need to go down. You need to go and be very exposed. This is a lot of surface area that you suddenly have to deal with. This base is certainly easier than the one in the middle. But MaxPax is now in one of those weird situations where you have a good economy and you have a nice army, but you're kind of losing the game. You have everything, but you're also not winning. Because Zerg has everything and then some. So he's going to try and make another move. Reynor now maxed out. He's going to try and follow this up with Lurkers. Lurkers together with a Spire here. Another cancel on the fourth base. And this is a real issue. We're now 10 minutes in. This fourth base was supposed to start up like 3 minutes ago. Ling run by, attempted towards the natural. Lucky for MaxPax though. He does split up his units preemptively. Couple of Lings over here attempting to see if I can get a snipe. Maybe the Mutas can get the job done. Phoenixes have been produced. There's 2 of them. It's not a lot. Third one just spawned. This is just on the off chance that this is mass Muta. MaxPax actually thinking about going across. I don't think that's the play. This is mostly the Mutas right now trying to maximize their effectiveness. Because their age is over. Yeah. Soon we will not even remember the Mutalisks. It's a sad day to be a Muta enjoyer. These units, though, are rarely worth it. This is one of those situations where they have actually been pretty good. But across the board, I think Mutas are just very risky. And mostly unnecessary. Okay, now, Fleet Beacon on the back of this here for Max. And he's gonna try and finally get that fourth base going. So it just finished up. It looks like Reynor has decided to let go of the aggression for a little bit. But now that those Mutas have died, it means that there's a lot more supply available. And that supply is gonna go into a bunch of these bad boys right now. I kinda like, by the way, having a couple of these leftover Mutas just sort of hanging out to snipe any prisms that could be coming in through the corners of the map. Looks like Reynor is going to try and just sack them, but this prism, hunting it down would be nice. MaxPax now sees these mutas over here too, so that's a clear indicator that the Prism is good to go. And there's the Mama ship. Okay. Lurker's now spotted in the middle of the map. Big Zealot warp in. This is mostly MaxPax just trying to delay any sort of aggression. He wants to get the Immortals out. He wants to get... Oh, he already has 5. It's actually better than I thought. Prism does end up going down here, but he already has a bunch of army. There's Storm available too. He's actually going to win this fight, I think, if he fights it, but decides to back off. The Concave here is quite scary. No reason to be aggressive. 2 more Immortals come marching down. Additional Stargates coming. Tempest coming up too. I feel like so far MaxPax hasn't really been able to get the ball going in this series. Game number 1, he just kind of got wiped off the map. Game number 2 so far, he's also been toyed with, but I do quite like his position here. At least if anybody's going to be able to micro their way out of this, I think this is Max. Because this is by no means an easy army for the Zerg player to break this base with. Lurkers can, of course, shoot across this little cliff. Max, though, with some defensive storms. And now Tempest coming up, too. Life should be fine. He's got 1 Tempest. Yeah, the Nexus doesn't have infinite HP. This is not the entirety of the Zerg army either. Looks like Max is actually just going to give up on it. Wow, that's a proper high-level move. I would have jumped that 100% of the time. I wonder if he could have, because that was only half the Protoss army too. It's just such a tight choke point, right? A difficult call to make. Max decides to give up on it. And maybe it's also because that Protoss late game army has been looking really nice. We've had a look at some games between, for example, Estrella and Serral, where Serral, who is an absolute late game monster, wasn't sure what to make in the late game. So I think MaxPax is maybe thinking to himself, yo, I can actually delay that base as long as I can get to my ultimate army. I should be fine. Oh, some good storms. A couple of shots. Backs off. We have the lunge ability for the Hydralisk coming up right now too. Reynor trying to see if he can secure another 4th base kill. There's the Mama ship. I think he's going to activate Cloak and go. I think he needs to, honestly. It's a lot of aggression here, man. Lovely movement by Reynor, by the way. Hats off to him. Hitting his opponent in so many different angles, but ultimately he still has his eyes set on the price, and that is once more a 4th base. At the 10-minute mark is when MaxPax finally managed to get this base up and going, and now 5 minutes later, I mean, he starts it up again. How many times? 3 of them have been killed. I think another 3 or so have been cancelled. Super painful. Reynor is exceptionally far ahead, but he needs to deal with this Protoss army. I don't think you can really deal with this Protoss army if you're gonna go Hydras, and that is what he's doing. So he's going... Oh, he's gonna go Microbial Shroud. Okay. So, I haven't yet really seen Microbial Shroud be effective, but it is certainly better than it was in the previous patch. So Microbial Shroud, it's the ability that allows Protoss units from the air to deal 50% damage to units that are targeted underneath the cloud. Microbial Shroud, though, used to just stick to the map, and now it sticks to the units that were inside of that cloud for another couple seconds. So if Hydras are underneath the cloud and they walk out of it, they actually get to still enjoy the effects of the cloud for another, I think it's like 3-4 seconds or so. Honestly, it's still kind of a garbage ability, mostly because of the fact that, well, Storm is just really... Like, it's not so much that... in a weird way, it's not so much the Skytles units that are the problem, it's the other units on the ground. Ultra Cavern on the back of this right now, too. Double Nidus, though, in the main base. This needs to be addressed ASAP. Luckily here for MaxPax, Mama, together with a couple of units, was guarding the main. Okay. MaxPax now trying to see if he can get his double expansion going. Ultra Cavern is ambitious, but we really need Carapace upgrades if he's going to play that. I think I would have rather seen a transition right now towards Corruptors. I see what Reynor is trying to do, but I think Corruptors are a better choice. Whenever you go for chitinous plating together with +1 carapace, it just seems like a recipe for disaster. And again, not one that gives you Barrow's gloves. So what's even the point? Anyways, we are going to see how this plays out. I'm not convinced that this is the correct move for Reynor. Then again, I'm not sure what Zerg is supposed to do in this position, and this is a great choke right here for Max, though. He managed to just... Oh, well, now he actually found himself sandwiched. Oh, you know what? What was a phenomenal play for the Protoss player turns out to be one that he overstayed his welcome in. He had that entire Lurker army trapped, but then found his own army trapped between the Lurkers and more Lurkers. Aggression coming in again as well through the middle of the map. This choke point is now a whole lot better. Lungeability does snipe one of those Tempests. +3 air weapons coming up. Carrier transition now underway, and I like this here from Max. Initially, I think a group of Tempests is really nice, but when you get up there with the attacking upgrades, since every single one of the interceptors gets +2 damage from the upgrade, and every single carrier can carry 8 of them, it's exceptionally handy to transition towards those units here instead. The one Muta, by the way, from earlier, still providing some vision here for a Nidus Worm to be put down. Cool guys don't look at explosions, as MaxPax leaves one of the Immortals behind. And ultimately, he gets to the Death Ball. He gets to the Death Ball that he has been trying to make. He's not had a good time or an easy time getting there. But he arrived. As we all know, it's all about the destination. The journey is irrelevant. I think I got that right. Yeah, now it will be up to Reynor to deal with this. And since he's not going Corruptors, I'm not sure. I'm really not convinced. Let's see. Okay, we do have a nice lunge forward. Carriers! Oh my god, one of them does go down. The other one, just literally 1 HP. Stays around for a little bit longer. Those storms are gonna push away the Zerg. And this, even though it was about the best fight Reynor could have taken, was still a landslide victory for Max. Max constantly keeps his units split up. He's taking another base right now in the bottom left. 6 Ultras coming up. Oy, oy, oy. Honestly, whenever I've got this like gut feeling that Ultras are a bad move, they're usually terrible. Like, Ultras are rarely even remotely efficient. I think in this type of situation, Ultras are just gonna get murdered. They're only at +1 carapace right now. I mean, other than the chitinous plating. And there's already +3 Immortals out. This is supposed to catch MaxPax off guard, but I'm pretty sure MaxPax will be happy unwrapping this Zerg gift. He's already kind of in a position where he can push through all this, so I think the idea is to give up on the Lurkers and then replace them with Ultras instead. I mean, I want to believe here for Reynor. In the meantime, Mama has got plans of her own. She's ready to recall the entirety of the Skytol's ball around those Lurkers into the natural expansion. And I think, yeah, that is exactly what she's gonna do. Recall is gonna get activated. And this army is traveling. That means that the Lurkers are gonna have to scramble to get over here. He actually recalled on top of the Ultra Cavern. Honestly, I feel like keeping that alive, maybe doing Zerg a service, you know? Like, keeping it around makes it the game a little bit easier for you. Anyways, there's reinforcements going through the middle of the map as well. Lurkers did leave this behind already. Lurker then goes down too. Brilliant play right here from MaxPax. Not that long ago, man. MaxPax at minute, like, what, 17? Finally secured his 4th base. Recall's back home right now, except for one of the Templar, one of the Immortals, and one of the Observers. Now, this guy can fly. The others, I guess this guy is called Immortal. This dude is high, so, you know, he probably didn't realize what was going on. Didn't step in the circle, but Reynor needs to react. How good is this Zerg army truly? Well, Nidus can be good, but I think actually the Neural Parasite could be even better. If he can take control of the Protoss army, obviously that can work out. Here come the Ultras, though. This is about the best fight you can have. Fungal growth will also be a detector. Already, though, so many units go down. Isn't this Zerg army just getting murdered? Yeah. Oh my god. Ultras, dude, just don't. Honestly, late game Zerg, just don't. Try. If you're a Zerg player, try with all your might to finish the Protoss player off, because you're not gonna win the game in the long run against the top tier Protosses. Well done by MaxPax. He obtains the victory in game number 2. And that means that the final game in this best of 3 series is this one, and we find ourselves on Ultra Love. It is fascinating how at the absolute highest level of StarCraft 2, for years and years and years, we've seen just Protoss late game getting butchered, right? We've seen the top level Zergs like Serral just dismantle it, like Reynor just dismantle it repeatedly over and over and over again, to the point where Protosses, very much so, we're trying to do the thing that Zerg players are trying to do right now. They tried to win in the mid game. I think in the previous patches, trying to take, well, Zerg to the late game was a bad move. Now it seems to be that the tables have turned in that regard. It's up to the Protoss players to, well, win in the late game, and the Zerg players to try and kill them in the meantime. I think that Reynor was in a really lovely position, though, in that previous match. Like, when you have a Protoss player still contained on 3 bases at minute 15, I guess he mined the minerals for a little bit, so it wasn't 100% contained, but I think that was about the best case scenario he was ever going to get on King's Cove. And then for MaxPax to still be able to turn that around is very impressive. Maybe Reynor should have kept hitting that 4th base. Keep hammering it. I also wonder if you shouldn't go Corruptors. So the Corruptor is a bit of a... excuse me. The Corruptor is a bit of a weird unit, where we've seen like 2 flavors of Protoss late game. We've seen the flavor that we saw in the previous game, where it's relatively Skytoss heavy. But then we've also have been seeing the one where it's basically a ground-based army with like 3 Tempests, and then the Mama ship in the air. And if you accidentally make like 20 Corruptors against the second option, yeah, you can kill the mothership, but now congratulations, you have like 40 supply of dead units up in the air. Right? The Corruptors need to be morphed into something else. So you can of course go Greater Spire, but it's a puzzle that's a bit messed up. And obviously when you do go for that ground-based army as Protoss, and you do mix in a Skytoss, like a group of them, right? Like a couple of Tempests, and then you also do go for a Mama ship. When you lose more of your ground units, you can just add more of those late-game Skytoss units instead when you see that Zerg is not going Corruptors. So I think that's what happened in the previous game. Maybe MaxPax wasn't originally planning on playing mass Skytoss, but he looked at that army, he's like, wait a second, if you're gonna go Hydras, don't mind if I do. Nice little bit of Oracle harassment here. 2 drones, nothing all too crazy, but not terrible at this point in the game yet either. Twilight Council. Should be Blink. Should be +1. Yeah. It's much harder to secure your 4th base when you do go into the charge upgrade first. Or at least it seemed that way in the previous game. So MaxPax once more going back to his good old standard. Here's that Zergling run by. Identical to the one in game number 1. And so far I'm getting a little bit of deja vu. 8 probes go down, Oracle's forced back home. Adepts are on the other side of the map at least. But this is not the beginning that MaxPax was hoping for. Seems like Reynor has figured out how to perfectly counter this Oracle Adept style from MaxPax. Admittedly, MaxPax has been playing this pretty much exclusively in every single one of his games. Again, with some variations and stuff, but he generally goes for this push. Seems like Reynor has the perfect answer. Turns out it was Zerglings all along. You could obviously leave behind a couple of units, right? You could maybe rally one more Oracle over there or keep one of them at bay. Here's another Ling run by. This time around, at least there's some Stalkers. Now, this is not, by the way, the exact same build here from Reynor, because he decided to go +1 missile. So +1 missile together with a lair. It looks to me like he wants to go for the Roach style and maybe go straight into Hydras again. This is not going to be +2 Lings, though. Okay. Yeah, there's the Roach speed. Good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, what do you cancel? Okay. He's decided to go Hydra Den here instead. I think this was an infestation pit. It's interesting to me how Zerg has so many good options in the mid game, but none of them are really that much more popular than the other. I would say that like the Lurker style, I guess, is the most popular across the board. But we have seen Mutas, we have seen Swarm Host, we have seen Roach Ravager, we've seen Hydra Lingbane, Roach Ravager Lingbane, Queen Drops, Mass Knight as well, right? There's a lot of variety. And I think that's where Zerg really is at its scariest. It's very much so up to Protoss to try and just survive that section of the game. Protoss players have become a big fan again of Sonic Storm. He's gonna be able to go for that here again in 1 second. And this guy, ready to cast some bad weather right over here on the ramp. Robo facility right now on the back of this. Charge on the back of this too. This is a much more passive approach though for MaxPax. Not really in his opponent's face. Does catch a lot of Zerglings here actually. On move command. That was a misplay right there from Reynor. Oracles in the meantime trying to see if they can get some sort of damage done. These 8 probes really are hurting me, man. Like, I think losing those 6 probes early on, or 7 or so probes, when the first group of Zerglings ran in over here, it was a painful one. And this is now him going straight Fleet Beacon. We've seen MaxPax do this before, but I feel like every time I've seen him do this against a top tier Zerg, he ends up losing his 4th base. Or maybe in this case, even his 3rd. Reynor is on the hunt. He doesn't know exactly what he's playing against, but this is Protoss effectively skipping the mid game and going straight late game. I don't think this is the correct play for MaxPax, especially not when you're economically behind. Keep in mind, these are lurkers that aren't actually fully upgraded. Now, that is a nice stasis ward, but these are lurkers without their ranged upgrade, without their burrow research, because we're still at Lairtech. So this is Lairtech lurkers. Very weird. Normally, these units are considered to be only good in the late game, but Reynor has figured out, I think, what his opponent is going for and decides to double down on the aggression. In the meantime, though, we do have Zealot aggression too. Zealots in the top left, Zealots over at the 3rd base. As long as the damage here on the Zerg side is not too significant, it looks like Reynor did leave some units behind. If he can kill his opponent's 3rd, that would be massive. There's the Mama ship coming up, though. Yeah, it just takes too long, man. I think MaxPax is being a little too eager here. He could have waited another minute or two, stayed on that Robotech for a little bit longer, lean onto those gateway units for a little bit longer, and then go Fleet Beacon. This works awesomely against a Zerg player who's passive, one that wants to play late game with you. But if they go for hyper aggression in the mid game, which is effectively what this is, look at the word count. We're at 68 probes, or 68 drones rather, versus 81 probes. Reynor is not keen to play another late game against you. And I think you need to almost like feel that out. Bit too eager here for Max. He's still fine though. His economy is still really good. But this is a big hit. Decides to go for the base in the far bottom right. Easy kill for Reynor. It is so far away though that he's not really expecting that there is going to be a base over here. A couple Zerglings could make quick work of that. This is, by the way, a lot of Templar. 9 Templar with Storm. Mothership is almost out. Mama! Ooh. There she is. And this is a good unit. It deals a lot of damage. There's actually no detection for the Zerg, is there? Oh. No, there's not. You do have to be careful, though, because if one of these units has vision, the lurkers will still deal splash damage. Hello. The mothership is just... okay. We were not microing that. Curious play. I mean, it does have a lot of HP, but not infinite amounts, if you're just going to leave it on top of the queens. Life's pretty good, and now suddenly Reynor is overwhelming not just the 3rd, but also the natural expansion. Recall towards the Nexus here. He's trying to just get some of those units across. There should be storms available, and that was the riskiest recall I've seen in a while. But I do think Max is gonna be okay here. Yeah. Stepmother ship coming up. Sometimes the replacement is better. It's not a okay, sure, it's not a replacement mothership. Okay, sure. Revelation. Gotta be a necessity. Storms here are keeping this army at bay. Cybercore coming up. Cybercore number 1 did go down. At this point, there's no possibility to warp in Stalkers or anything along those lines until that Cybercore is finished. Looks like the base in the bottom right has been found, though. And that is a rough one for MaxPax. That's the only thing he really had going for himself. Yeah, really well done right here by Reynor. Honestly, the fact that he is... I think this is working primarily due to the fact that Protoss is playing too eager. He was too quick to transition towards that fleet beacon. If he would have gone just a little bit later, he would have been fine. He needs another warp in of units. And even if he stabilizes here, right? So this is honestly impressive defense still for MaxPax. It's already so much damage dealt. Now, economically speaking, Reynor is ahead. He did kill enough probes to really justify this. Base in the bottom right is slowly being chipped away at. Probes are hiding over here, so even though the worker count for MaxPax is not that bad, it's by no means mining. So that means that for at least a minute or two, Reynor is getting about 2,000 resources more every minute. +1 air weapons coming up. Supply block right now for MaxPax. That is not something he can use. And in the meantime, Reynor has been spreading creep all over the map. He's gonna try and take the opposite base in the top left-hand corner. Carrier coming up. +1 air weapons. Researching now, but there's a Spire. I think Reynor's done playing Hydras. He is not keen to play Hydras again. I kind of feel like in this game you can get away with Hydras maybe, but... Well, hey, there is still a chance though for MaxPax. His army is still significant. If we look at the army value, it's over here in the top left. MaxPax's army is actually more valuable than Reynor's at this point in time. Well, at least before I started that sentence. 9 Dropalords coming up. Okay. So let's see. Basically, Reynor's game plan is to try and smother the Protoss in stuff. Just try to suffocate them with as much aggression as possible. It's a risky move, but one that can work out. MaxPax, on the other hand, is trying to effectively turtle up. He's saying, yo, bro, can we just, like, relax for a little bit? And I make some units, you make some units, and then eventually we clash. And Reynor doesn't want to deal with that again. Honestly, I kind of thought that MaxPax was dead when his natural expansion died. Like, it did not look good. The fact that he actually kept his base running and kept most of the probes alive is actually also really quite nice. If Reynor would have killed all those workers, I think it would have been okay. But here we go. Mass Queen drop together with a lot of, well, lurkers, hydras, and everything else that could fit inside of these OVs. Obviously, though, burrowing lurkers within range of the ramp is very tricky, because now the High Templar can't really move up. Tempest count is decent, 6 of them in total, 2 carriers available too. Revelation is also still hot, so you can actually throw the Revelation onto these Queens and reach them with the Tempest at their maximum range. Queens are not going to be able to really shoot this down. Probes are falling, though, and in the meantime, the rest of the Zerg army has moved over here. MaxPax always good when it comes to splitting up his army. Lunch is finished now, but there's the Corruptor transition. This is what Reynor was looking for in the previous game. Ultras, not the play. I think Corruptors, definitely a better option. Dude, I'm actually so impressed that MaxPax is still in this. Kind of blows my mind a little bit. Honestly, MaxPax is sort of fine. Like, MaxPax's bank is not bad. Yeah, he lost the main. I mean, the Nexus is still here, but most of his tech was in the natural, and he already rebuilt that. Additional Stargates coming up. He will need a new fleet beacon. Honestly, this is slowing down Protoss a lot, but it's not necessarily winning the game. Dude, if MaxPax wins from here, I'm gonna lose my mind. Reynor was already like 50 supply up in game number 2 and couldn't get the job done. I don't think he's ever been that far ahead in game number 3. Well, here we go. Corruptor. Storm. We need Storm. We need Storm! Very late on those Storms. Archon sleeping on the job as well. Mama Ship finally joins in the fight, but this was way messier than it was supposed to be. One of the High Templar gets killed by its own bad weather, and suddenly MaxPax army supply plummets. Great catch right there by Reynor. Corruptors once more headed in this direction. Time warp. Okay, trying to get these units. That's the nosedive right there that MaxPax was not looking for. Fleet Beacon starts up. We have Void Race now, transitioning. A little Zergling drop towards the main base just to finish off whatever was left over. A couple of lurkers over here also sniping probes and just being obnoxious. Oh, this Oracle has been absolutely critical. Luckily, it does stay alive. The same cannot be said for the Immortal, despite its name. Another Stargate building in the bottom right. Honestly, very impressive stuff here by Reynor, right? Like, it's clear that Reynor has been playing this game a little bit more once again. Just because one plays League of Legends does not mean they lose all their StarCraft skills. I heard he's actually pretty damn good at League of Legends. I don't really know League very much. I know that League players are generally very salty. They usually seem to be, not having a great time. But anyways. Maybe his sanity is now worse than ever. But maybe his mental game is gonna, be on the up and up. Mid or AFK! I remember playing League of Legends way back in the day. I remember guys in the game, teammates of mine, would like type mid or AFK, and they would just... It was the worst.
Why are you taking this game so seriously, bro? I'm just trying to have fun, man. Why are you trying so hard, dude?
Oh, I am not made for games that have teammates. I take everything seriously, okay? I take nothing not seriously. My whole life is me trying to take stuff seriously. You're playing games for fun? Please don't be my teammate. Ay, 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 ay. Genuinely, I don't think I get very salty playing games, but I do get salty playing team games. Yeah, I'm not, like, unless it's like friends that I'm hanging out with on like Discord or whatever. When I'm playing with randoms, it is not good for my mental health. Anyways, here we go. We're gonna go fishing. Nice Storm, though. Still deals quite a bit of damage to the Corruptors. Oof. Ooh, I think this is why we don't really see a lot of Corruptor play. Because Storm is so good against those clumped up units. Love this, by the way. Changelings on the Watchtower. The mothership is still cloaking away, but it's not gonna last forever. Oh, well. Okay, stays alive. Cast Storm on himself. Obviously, it does do friendly fire and good feedback. MaxPax has been pushed into the corner. His final bastion. He tried to dig a moat. He's been trying to do whatever it takes. But Reynor has been cutting off the supply lines. Reinforcements have not been able to make their way towards the bottom right-hand corner. And I believe that this is where MaxPax is going to make his final stand. He's making Reynor fight for this. Reynor could have made this a hell of a lot easier if he would have seen this expansion when it was first planted down. But finally, he does finish off this expansion. Tempest being targeted, the low HP ones first. Honestly, Reynor's playing some fantastic StarCraft. Genuinely very impressive. Super fast. 529 average actions per minute throughout this game. It's a lot of buttons. I don't think a League of Legends player has ever hit that many buttons a second on average. Anyways, enough roasting League of Legends. You can enjoy games you want to enjoy, okay? I'm not going to be a StarCraft gatekeeper. Although I will say that StarCraft is the best game. Yeah. I'm only slightly biased. Nice. Little bit of StarCraft entitlement. A little bit of abducting right here. Poor Reynor. He's fishing right now. MaxPax has nothing. This is his base. This is all he's got. There's about a 0% chance that he's going to win this, but he is hoping that maybe he can create a bulldozer army and just go straight through the middle of the map and just cut where it where it hurts the Zerg the most. But yeah, it's not like Reynor is super rich. He's got quite a bit of money in the bank, like a bunch of minerals, a bunch of gas. But at this point, I mean, he's got enough stuff here to just keep Protoss occupied for a long time. Reynor's just double-checking all of the outer bases. He doesn't obviously know, but he's been checking everywhere, and he knows that there's not much economy anymore. MaxPax still hoping for the perfect engagement. And it is critical that he does move, though. Like, Reynor does need to get something done. He can't really sit, like, let MaxPax sit here. He doesn't know how much money is remaining. This is ultimate value here for Max. Time Warp, Storm, ay. A lot of get off my lawn mechanics for MaxPax. Okay. A little bit of an anticlimactic GG, but ultimately, it's Reynor who obtains the victory 2-1 over MaxPax.